Thank you. So today we will speak about the state of Ethereum censorship resistance. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I am Mikhail Gurevich, a Lido DAO contributor in analytics stream. We'll talk today, we'll start from some definitions that will help us to talk about the censorship. Then we'll look into the current state of censorship in Ethereum and why we might need a slightly different approach to that. Then we'll revisit the current state from the different angle. And then we'll talk about what should we do next in relation with this censorship situation in Ethereum. So Lido. Lido is an on-chain middleware that connects stakers with node operators, and it is governed by Lido DAO. Now more than 9.7 million of Ethereum is staked through Lido middleware. Now let's talk about the definitions which we need to discuss censorship. What's the difference between validators and node operators? Validators is oh, the slide is somewhat broken here, but okay. The validator is a virtual entity which participates in the Ethereum protocol's consensus. And basically, each validator is a set of services or clients which run on some hardware. Node operators, on the other hand, is an entity which provides a secure infrastructure for running these services. And they ensure that protocol runs smoothly and that users' assets are safe. So, yeah, the slides are really broken. Let's now define the act of censorship. So what is the act of censorship? Let's say we have a transaction that has enough gas fee in it, a proper gas limit, and it doesn't contradict the protocol rules. And there is enough block space right now to include it into the next block, but for some reason it's not included. We would call this an act of censorship, and this definition doesn't cover 100% cases, so there are some edge cases in which it's not accurate, but we are fine with that for now. Usually censorship is not economically profitable, so why does it exist? Actually, there are several reasons why it exists. The first and the major one is compliance and risk reductions. So some actors must comply with the governance regulation, so like Office of Foreign Assets Control lists and other things. Some actors choose to comply as a precaution, but it needed to be stated here that there is no regulation that mandates that omitting such transactions would make you compliant. So it's an unconfirmed interpretation of the current regulations. This was the major one cause of censorship. The two other reasons are more rare, and the first one of them is economically profitable. So sometimes it's more profitable to include bundle of transactions than like the sum of individual profit from them. And ethics or beliefs, this means that some actors could believe that not all activities should be allowed on chain, and they could imply censorship. Now let's talk about how the blocks are actually produced. So there are several actors in this process, like block builders, proposers, and MEV relays. The first path is to produce a block through the MEV boost relays. MEV is a maximum extractable value. This refers to the profit that can be extracted by a block proposer from building a block. And block builders are searching for the best possible block at every time. Then these blocks are distributed via MEV-boost software. Like MEV-boost software is used for finding these blocks. And MEV-boost relays, they act as an intermediaries between block builders and block proposers. So basically, block proposals could sell the block space to the block builders. This path could imply censorship because MEV relays select the block builders to search for the block, and these block builders could imply censorship. The next one is vanilla blocks. Vanilla blocks are the blocks being built by block proposers solely based on the priority fees and available block space. This approach does not imply any censorship. There is another possible path, which is custom execution layer clients. But in reality, it's very, very, very rare. But I'll mention it because it could exist. Right now, we have around 91% of blocks being produced by MEV relays and 9% of vanilla blocks. We are done with definitions. Now let's look at the current state of censorship. Here is a screenshot from a popular service, mevwatch.info. And as we can see here, around 60% of currently created blocks are built by MEV relays, which impose OFAC-based censorship. The infographics looks very red and somewhat alarming, but what does it really mean for us? I want to state that these two statements are not equal. So a block made by OFAC, by a relay which implies OFAC-based censorship is not equal to a block in which an act of censorship has occurred. That's because not every block is being built in a time where we have a potentially censored transaction in a memory pool. That's why 2 years ago, Lido ecosystem grant organization issued a request for proposals in order to build a service, a monitoring tool to understand the censorship better. So the main idea was to understand censorship from the user perspective. Like what would be the latency of a potentially censored transaction if a user tried to make it. Before becoming a Lido contributor, I was a part of the team Neutrality Watch, and we created this service. So we gathered data, and we built a machine learning classifier, which predicted for each transaction in the memory pool whether it should be included into the next block at any given point of time. And this allows us to calculate the latency, censorship latency for each transaction. And on the right, you can see the graph, and it shows us that this latency was fluctuating around 20 seconds for the last 6 months. Let's reflect on this result. So first of all, social pressure in Ethereum works really good and prevents censorship. So this means that that's because like we see that it's less than 24 seconds for a transaction to be processed, and it's just 2 blocks. And despite, as we saw, despite the almost half of MEV boost relays were imposing censorship, it's just 2 blocks. So is it enough? Actually, I don't know. Some people can say that 2 blocks is relatively small latency. For some of you, any amount of censorship could be alarming. So it's an open question. For me, I would say that it's not bad, could be better, but still. What should we do next? We should continue to monitor the state of censorship, even if we believe that current situation is okay. And now I suggest we're talking about some doomsday scenario. Let's imagine that at some point of time, all MEV relays become censoring relays, and that node operators in general doesn't change their approach. We still remember that we have 9% of vanilla blocks, and that's why there would be no full censorship in this case, but the latency would skyrocket to 130 seconds. What could be, what can we do to recover from this situation? There is a parameter in MEV boost software called minimum bit. and it is set by the node operator. It defines the threshold, and then like for each block, if the MEV of current block exceeds this threshold, then validator will use the block proposed by relay, even if it implies censorship. While if the MEV for the block is less than this threshold, the validator would build a vanilla block by himself. So no censorship in this case. We are now talking about the really extreme scenario, and let's make another assumption on top of it. What would be if Lido DAO would vote for establishing a minimum bid as a mandatory option for node operators? We gathered some data. We gathered data on the MEV for the last 6 months and calculate the share of vanilla blocks for each of these thresholds. And also we calculate the decrease of MEV in that case. You can see it on the graph. The x-axis shows us the mean bid thresholds. The y-axis is percentage. Blue line shows us the share of vanilla blocks for each value of threshold. And orange line shows us the MEV reduction. What we can see is that if the threshold would be set as 45,000th of Ethereum, it would result in half of the blocks being vanilla. And the downside would be the 17% reduction of MEV. It's a lot, to be honest, but still, we are talking about a doomsday scenario here. So now we have 50% of blocks being vanilla, and the Lido share now is around 28%. This gives us 14% of all blocks would be vanilla. And taking into account that currently we have 9% of vanilla blocks, the total share of vanilla blocks would be around 20.5%. This would give us an average latency for potentially censored transactions around 60 seconds. This is way worse than the current situation, but we are talking about recovering from this extreme scenario. So 16%, 60 seconds is not that bad. Let's recap. So now, thanks for the Ethereum community, we have a latency of around 20 to 30 seconds. In a doomsday scenario, it would skyrocket to 130 seconds. Thanks to 9% of vanilla blocks, it would not be a full censorship. And a single policy change from Lido could bring it back to 60 seconds. So please continue doing this great work. Please read the anti-censorship researches like inclusion lists and multiple proposers. Visit Lido Research Forum, take part into RFPs. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.